The first time I saved Ethan, he didn't even look me in the eyes. I spent 3 years by his side, giving up everything, my dreams, my youth, my health, just to help him walk again after the accident that shattered his spine and nearly took his life. I massaged his legs through the pain, brewed the medicines the doctors couldn't, and stayed up all night whispering words of hope into his ears, even when he refused to speak. People called it devotion. I called it love. But to him, I was just a stand-in, a shadow of the girl he lost. Her name was Lila, his first love, the woman he never stopped waiting for. She was gone before I came into the picture. Everyone thought she had disappeared, left him. But Ethan always believed she'd come back. And maybe that's why, no matter how many times I helped him up, how many nights I cried quietly beside his hospital bed, he never said thank you. Never once asked if I was okay. Because in his heart, I was never supposed to be there. He only wanted her. The day Ethan finally stood on his feet again was supposed to be our new beginning. The doctors called it a miracle. His family wept with joy. I just stood there, smiling through tears, thinking maybe now, just maybe, he'd see me. But he walked right past me and picked up Lila's photo from the table. She would have been proud, he whispered. I think something inside me broke that day. Even then, I stayed. I told myself it didn't matter. That love wasn't about being loved back. That maybe, if I gave it more time, he'd soften. That he'd forget her. That he'd see me. But I was wrong. He married me out of gratitude. Said it was the least he could do. A quiet wedding. No vows. No rings. Just a signature and a cold handshake from his mother. She reminded me that no matter what I did, I'd never be Lila. And for a while, I tried to prove her wrong. I cooked. I cleaned. I kept his secrets. I never asked for love. I only wanted a home. What I got was silence. On our anniversary, he didn't come home. On the night I told him I was pregnant, he looked at me like I'd betrayed him. I lost the baby 2 weeks later, alone, in pain. He never came to the hospital. Didn't even ask what happened. That was the end for me, but fate wasn't finished, because not long after, I died. A car accident, quick and brutal. I didn't even see it coming. One moment I was staring at my phone, waiting for Ethan to reply to my last message. The next, everything went black, and then I woke up. Same world, same city, but a different time. I was back, 2 years before the accident, before the marriage, before I ruined myself for a man who never wanted me. The universe had handed me a second chance. This time, I wouldn't make the same mistake. So when I saw Ethan again, still angry and bitter, still clinging to the memory of Lila, I smiled politely and walked away. He didn't remember me, of course. To him, I was just another stranger. But to me, he was a closed chapter. I opened my own clinic, started healing people, not just with herbs and ointments, but with kindness, with hope. I helped an old soldier walk again. I cured a child's chronic seizures. People began to know my name, not as Ethan's forgotten wife, but as Dr. Mira Chen, the woman who brought people back to life. I was finally free, until Ethan walked into my clinic. Still handsome, still cold, still broken inside. He didn't recognize me. His spine injury had just happened. His fiancée, Leela, had just left, and he needed help. Dr. Chen, he said, they say you're the best. I should have turned him away, but didn't. Not because I still loved him, but because I couldn't watch another version of myself walk into hell for a man who wouldn't even open the door for her. So I treated him, professionally, distantly. No emotions, no extra kindness. I gave him what he paid for and nothing more. But something strange began to happen. The more I pulled away, the more he tried to come closer. He started asking questions, bringing coffee, trying to catch me after hours. "You seem familiar," he said once. I just smiled. And then came the night he finally stood again. He stared at me with disbelief, just like before. But this time, instead of walking past me, he grabbed my hand. "You saved me," he said, eyes filled with something I'd never seen before. "Why do I feel like I've known you forever?" I pulled my hand away. "It doesn't matter," I replied. "You're healed. That's all that matters." He watched me, confused. "Why do you hate me?" I froze, because I remembered every insult, every cold shoulder, every moment he made me feel small. But he didn't remember anything, not yet. And, just like that, the tables had turned. He began showing up everywhere, asking about my life, offering to invest in my clinic. He even asked if I was single. I laughed in his face, but deep down, a storm was brewing. Because now, I had the power. He didn't know what he'd done to me in the past life. But I did, and this time, I wasn't going to break. I was going to let him chase, let him feel the ache of being unseen, let him fall for someone who wouldn't fall back, let him burn for a love he once threw away. But just when I thought I had it all figured out, Lila came back, and that's when everything began to fall apart again. Lila's return shook everything. It was like watching a ghost walk back into a room I had finally learned to breathe in. She hadn't aged a day, still graceful, still soft-spoken, still wearing the same perfume Ethan used to keep in the drawer beside his bed. I saw her first at the hospital, where I volunteered part-time. She didn't recognize me. How could she? In this life, we had never met, but I recognized her. Every detail. I learned that she had been abroad, under treatment for some rare illness. She hadn't run away from Ethan. Not in this version of reality, at least. She had been forced to leave, and now she was back, ready to pick up where things had left off. Ethan didn't say anything at first. I could tell he was trying to hide his shock, but something in his eyes dimmed the day he saw her again. Like all the strength he had built slowly over months was crumbling under one familiar smile. He stopped coming to the clinic regularly, became quieter. Then one evening, I caught him waiting for me outside the building. "She's back," he said. Like he owed me that truth. "I know," I replied. Didn't explain himself, and I didn't ask. What was there to say? In his mind, he was still free to choose her. We were nothing. I was just his doctor, the one who helped him stand again. But the way he looked at me, there was hesitation now, a quiet pull, and maybe even guilt. That's when I realized he was torn. For the first time, Ethan was caught between two women, but not in the way you'd think, because Lila came back to a version of him that wasn't whole anymore. And I had become someone who didn't need him anymore. But love is never that simple. Lila too noticed the change. Her sweet smiles turned sharp whenever she saw Ethan glance my way. She began visiting the clinic for no reason, sitting in the waiting room, pretending to ask about herbs she didn't understand. One day, she looked me in the eye and said, "You're very close to Ethan, almost like you've known him before." I smiled. Some wounds heal slowly. Some never do. That tension began to seep into everything. Ethan became unpredictable. Some days he was cold and distant again, as if trying to remind himself of the love he once fought for. Other days, he hovered close to me, offering to carry files, calling late to ask about sleep routines, asking if I ever regretted anything in life. Each time I gave him the same polite distance, But the truth was, my heart had started to slip, not into love, but into confusion, because the man before me wasn't the Ethan who hurt me in the past. He was softer now, unsure, and in a strange way, trying. But I reminded myself again and again, this second chance wasn't about him. It was about me, my healing, my life. Still, fate kept dragging us together. One night it stormed hard and the city lost power. I stayed back at the clinic to make sure the equipment wasn't damaged. Just as I was locking up, he showed up, soaked, eyes searching. "Why are you here?" I asked, clutching my umbrella tighter. He stepped closer, voice barely audible through the rain. "Because when everything goes dark, you're the first person I think of." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. And that silence, that pause, was enough for him to lean in. Not to kiss me, not yet, but to be near, like he finally wanted to understand something he had ignored for too long. But just when it felt like something might change between us, the past came roaring back in. I received an anonymous letter. No name, just one sentence. "Do you think you're the only one who remembers?" My hand shook. Someone knew. Someone else had lived the first version of this story. And suddenly, all the control I thought I had, the advantage, the clarity, it began to unravel. Because if someone else was reborn too, then what else had changed? I began to look at everyone differently. At Lila, at Ethan, at even myself. I started wondering, was this really just about second chances? Or was someone pulling the strings behind the scenes? Then, one afternoon, I followed Lila. She wasn't headed to her usual cafe or her therapist's clinic. She went to a house on the edge of the city, tucked between the trees. I watched from across the street as she met someone. A woman, older, familiar, and I realized, with a jolt, that it was Ethan's mother. They hugged, whispered, smiled. It wasn't just coincidence that Lila had returned. It was planned. And Ethan was being played too. Everything spiraled from there. Ethan began losing business deals. His family's company faced pressure from unknown sources. Lila moved into his house, claiming she needed emotional support, and every time he tried to find peace, something would collapse again. He turned to me in desperation one night, voice hoarse with frustration. "I don't know what's real anymore," he said. I trusted her. I thought, maybe this time we could be okay, but I keep thinking about you. Every time something breaks, I want to run to you. I couldn't tell him the truth. Not yet. That I had already lived through this nightmare once. That I had already loved and lost him. That now I was just trying to survive without burning. But the cracks were widening, the lies piling up, and the feeling in my gut was clear. The real story hadn't even started yet, and someone, maybe more than one, was determined to rewrite it their way. I thought I was the only one who came back to fix the past. But maybe I wasn't the only one with a score to settle. And maybe, this time, it wouldn't be Ethan's heart that broke first. Maybe it would be mine, again. I couldn't sleep after that night. The feeling that someone else had returned to the past like me, it haunted every quiet second. But what truly kept me awake was the possibility that this second life wasn't a blessing. Maybe it was a trap, a test, a chance to see if pain would break me again. Ethan kept coming back. Every time he stumbled, every time Lila twisted the knife with a smile, he would find his way to me. I didn't push him away anymore, but I didn't open my arms either. I stayed somewhere in the middle, where the love wasn't safe, but the hate had worn thin. Then, one morning, everything cracked open. A video leaked online, CCTV footage from Ethan's office. Lila and Ethan's mother standing close, discussing keeping the girl away. They mentioned me by name. They talked about manipulating Ethan's medication, delaying his therapy, and planting doubts in his mind. And worse, they hinted at blackmailing a key investor in Ethan's company to force his hand. The video was dated weeks ago. The internet's exploded. Headlines circled fast. Heir's fiancé and mother behind his fall. Ethan's family was dragged through every media outlet. The scandal was unstoppable. And for once, I didn't have to say anything. The truth spoke loud enough. Ethan showed up at my doorstep the next evening, his eyes bloodshot, holding the printed photos from the footage in his trembling hands. "I was wrong," he said, voice breaking. "I thought you were just my healer, just someone who happened to be there. But you were the only person who ever fought for me. Without asking for anything, I didn't move. I let him speak. I don't deserve your forgiveness," he whispered. "But I need you to know, I loved her because I thought she was everything I'd lost. But now I know, I was just scared to love someone real." It hurt more than I expected, hearing that, because for so long, I had imagined this moment, that he'd finally see me, choose me. But now that it was happening, all I felt was tired. "I don't need an apology, Ethan," I said gently. "Not anymore. I healed you because I wanted to, not because I expected love back." He reached for my hand, but I pulled away softly. "I think I loved you in the first life because I didn't know how to love myself. But this time, I do, and that means letting you go." Tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't fight it. Maybe deep down, he knew too, that some second chances aren't meant for rekindling love. Some are meant for closure. Lila vanished from the public eye after the scandal. Ethan stepped down from his company for a while, choosing to quietly rebuild his life. I heard he started supporting patients with mobility challenges, even opened a small rehab center with his own money. And me? I moved to a quieter part of the city, opened a wellness clinic. Nothing big, just a simple space where people came for peace, for healing, the kind I once gave others, but finally learned to give myself. Sometimes Ethan would send flowers. No note, just a quiet gesture. I never responded, not because I was bitter, but because some chapters need to close completely. Looking back, I don't regret healing him, even if he didn't love me then, because in doing that, I found something bigger than love. I found freedom, and maybe, just maybe, that was the real purpose of this second life. Not to rewrite the love story, but to rewrite mine. So if you're watching this, and you've ever felt like your love was wasted, or your kindness went unnoticed, remember this: not every person you save is meant to stay, but every piece of yourself you give in love, that stays with you, that builds you, that heals you, and healing yourself is the greatest love story of all.